Hey everyone, it's Chuck Hogan with Your Best Life, and welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV's channels 250 and 251. Please remember to download both the Zingo TV app on the respective app stores on iOS and Android devices. While you download, please make sure you rate and leave a comment. The app's completely free. Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV Sticks, Roku Sticks, and all TVs 2016 forward. So thank you for joining us tonight. We have another amazing guest here on the Your Best Life show. And one of the things that's so cool about John Tennant is, well, not only is he a Renaissance man, I love having conversations with this guy because when we talk about anything, he knows a lot about a lot. And that is so stimulating when you get to meet someone who is not only an intellectual, but a very heart-centric, heart-driven man, and is really someone who's dedicated his life towards higher education, continuously learning and growing, expanding beyond what's comfortable, while still as an entrepreneur, being able to go ahead and create harmony in work and in life. And so please welcome tonight, John. Thank you so much for being here, my friend. It's great to see you, brother.
You too, Chuck.
So, I've known you and Terry now for many years. And one of the things that is so engaging to see is to see a couple still very much in love that is expanding as you enter into grandfatherdom and these new experiences. And so I was hoping that we could lend some insight and distinctions to some of our listeners out there in the universe as to what do you attribute this harmonious existence between everything that you do in business and your lifestyle at home?
Yeah, it's I think part of it is having the right partner. So we've been married about 19 years, and I was married 10 years before that. And I guess as part of the dating ritual, it all started there, and we were friends. We didn't think we would end up together, and so step by step, and we eventually rented a house together on the weekends, but we were living apart during the week with two children on each side. We both had two children from previous marriage, and so and fast forwarding, I realized I didn't want to live life without this person. And so I kind of came to that naturally. I was at the right age, I guess, with all this experience behind me. So in a way, I was just lucky to cross paths and kind of have the right setup. And so, we each came to this relationship with all of our experiences, all our background, our religious background, our families. And we talked about alignment on some key things. And I think just moving forward, I had a big corporate job at Intel. So did she. She worked at Intel, different department. And we continued to have experiences in life, one of which included moving to Asia for almost 8 years with our 4 kids. That, life has been interesting and fulfilling. And now that we're, like you mentioned, kind of in, we got our first grandchild now. We continue to still work to keep the spice in life intellectually and emotionally. And I guess that's kind of it. I don't know if there's one secret sauce. We continually, have challenges and work to work through those. So for instance, right now, we jointly own a business together, and so getting the roles and responsibilities exactly defined has also help that relationship continue.
That's amazing. I mean, again, it's so impressive because I know that coming from corporate enterprise and then becoming an entrepreneur, and you've always pretty much dabbled too as an entrepreneur as well. You were involved in a lot of different modalities, different businesses. What I love about you and Terry is communication styles, and there's always this undertone of appreciation and understanding. Is something that Julie and I, my wife, have modeled in the two of you as well. Because ultimately, when I start to look at couples, it really feels more like, are people moving apart or are they growing together? And it's not right or wrong. It's more a matter of, I'll say, life. There are circumstances and things that start to happen. And so I look at it and go, for you, now that you get to see the next generation coming in as well. So your children are having children. I'm not there yet. It could happen in the next couple of years. We'll wait and see. I'll wait for them to fall in love first. That would be even better. And what's brilliant is to see the joy on both your and Terry's face. And it's you can just see when you see your grandchild in the pictures how doting, how much love, how much like connection there is. And what would you say to folks that are so leveraged on the business side that they're forgetting the personal side?
Yeah, I'm actually, I'm looking at the two books that I'm carrying around right now, and one is, it's like a sci-fi book, and I love sci-fi. And then look at this, 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work. So even now, I think we were just talking to, well, we get some business training from several people, but one of which is a guy named Keith Cunningham in Austin, and he was saying, if you both know you're in this is a business perspective, that you both want the same thing for the business, then you give each other a lot of slack when they make decisions, and you're like, oh, why did she just make that decision, or why did she do that? And if I'm assuming she has the best interest of the business in heart, then I'm not questioning directly a lot of her decisions. And when I'm reading this marriage book, it's the same thing. It's like, if you're starting out and you're really thinking, hey, you both have the kind of the same thing in mind. I mean, your tactical goals might be different. She might want, X amount of dollars, and you might want beach and golf or something like that. But in the end, you still have similar targets.
Right.
And then by realizing that helps in business, and then it helps in relationship. And here I am, I've been married 19 years. I'm still reading about it. I'm not an expert, and I never will be. You and I met with John Gray last year. He's the Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus guy, author. And, I'm taking notes. We talk about it. So it's not, it never ends really. If it's something that's super important to you, which obviously it is, you just don't just throw in the towel or put it on autopilot.
No, and it's that when we can remove criticism and being critical, and we remain inquisitive and curious, it really changes the connection, right? And kind of you and I have discussed this quite often, and that's motive and intention. It's like, what's the motive and intention behind it? Like you said, I don't question Julie's intention. I'll go, that's interesting. And I get real curious about it. The difference is now is that in my naivete towards my youth, because we've been together 35 years, and it's been a minute. And we were having this discussion the other day. And just so I'm so excited to have you on this show, because you and Terry are two of the people we look at and go, oh my gosh, that's a healthy, burgeoning, beautiful relationship. And Julie and I made a commitment to each other. We want to hang around like-minded and like-hearted people. And so thank you for not only being friends, but family to us.
Well, it's never cool to hear somebody on a podcast give each other compliments, but truly you and Julie are a couple we look up to. I look up to. You guys are amazing and wonderful children. And we went on a trip with Chuck and Julie, where we were traveling through international airports, and it was just so cute to walk behind them and see them holding hands, and you guys are cute together.
We get a lot of feedback from our kids, and I go, really, dude? Like all the time? But it's the same way with you all. It's really invigorating also to see people who are living life on their terms. They're not just compromising, like you said. They're not just putting it to the side or tabling it. They're actually actively discussing it, making a commitment towards moving to a higher level. And I love what you said, and that is, you don't stop learning. I mean, I've been going back through Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. I've read Ariel Ford stuff again. I've gone even back through and looked at, Alison Armstrong, and it's like, hmm.
She's great. Yeah.
Oh, she's remarkable. And where we're at now, things resonate differently. Even though I've read it before, it's like going, oh, okay. Like it kind of hit before, it makes a lot more sense now. Now, one of the things that I love that you said is that, and I'm going to quote Keith Cunningham for a moment. You're not done cooking yet. It's like we all have this journey in life. Where do you find a lot of your passion to continuously grow comes from, John?
Yeah.
I always find
Yeah.
it inspirational in you.
Yeah. I'm sorry to cut you off there.
Not at all.
And by the way, I don't know any of Chuck's questions, so these are truly live questions. So I think I mentioned earlier that I worked for Intel almost 20 years. So yeah, technology is my true love. But then when I retired, I went and worked for an AI startup company in Austin, and then pretty shortly thereafter, ended up buying a supplement company that my father had started. And so, now I'm kind of in the medical field. And the thing that I realized is this concept of longevity where, I guess our goal is live one more year, right? If you live one more year, all of these new things coming down the highway are there to help you. And it's not living a life as an old person who's drooling and doesn't know what's going on and, beset by dementia and all that. It's really having a fulfilling, life. And my father is 83. He still goes to work 5 days a week, and so you and I mean, we could be working till we're 100. So if that's the case, there's plenty of time to retire from, a one career, which, mine was a large company career, but at 55, and then pivot to something else. And, life is not golf and pickleball. Honestly, it's you have to find some intellectual and emotional stimulus beyond that, even though, I love golf and tennis. But so I think it's like realizing intellectually, I don't want to be the person that's hobbling across the street. And I want to continue to enjoy my life. And so I think, maybe that's where it comes from. I also think about my kids, and I don't think it's healthy to have them see dad sitting on the couch, too much. Right. And so, I didn't make tons of money, but I made enough where I could just sit on the couch and watch sports and whatever and game. I love to game a little bit, but I don't think that's a great representation of really being an example to the kids. And so, that goes to my mind as well. You mentioned like the balance though. I think, work-life balance to me has always been a little bit of a misnomer. I think, it's like being present in the job and then present at home. And the job is going to take more hours. It just, so there was the pressure. I mean, I went to my, to my kids' kindergarten class, once a month. And then, first grade, a lot fewer dads. Second grade, maybe I was the only dad, still attending regularly. And the pressure to go to the soccer games at 4:00 and all that. I mean, I get it, but, you have a role, and part of that is as provider. And so I don't necessarily say I have to stop my work at 4:00 to have a fulfilled and balanced life. I just sleep a little bit less and, try to be present with the activity that I'm working on.
Yeah, I love that. I agree with you 1,000,000%. I've never been someone that espoused to the work-life balance. I love the concept of synergy and harmony, that there's always going to be shifts. And much like you, I don't want to miss anything. So I was coaching the kids in soccer and going to their martial arts classes and then tutoring them at night and reading stories and then still playing and making sure that Julie and I had our time together too. And because that's the privilege of it all. It's like, I don't want to miss out on any of this. I want to be engaged in it. I want to live in this, thrive in this life, not just get by. I love what you said, which was that oftentimes as parents and as spouses, I'm going to use a different term because in society, sometimes those roles are looked at as leadership roles. And it was very interesting. I heard a comment from Simon Sinek the other day, and he said, there are no professional leaders. There are no professional parents. You're groping around in the dark and learning on the fly. And when does that change? So if you're 22 or 92, guess what? There's still opportunity because the technology is advancing. To your point, things are shifting all around us. This new advent of AI, and it's like, huh, what does that yield? And I go, a lot of interesting opportunity. So where do you see John Tennant in 10 years from now?
Well, so this year, my wife and I, we hired, let's say, 3 CEOs to do private coaching. Okay. And 2 of those CEOs are kind of in our space, in our supplement space, so that, they know the industry. And what I want to do is, I think of it 2 ways, and both of these come from Peter Diamandis, right? So he's the X Prize, guy. First one is the largest problems on the planet are the biggest opportunities. And as I think about that, it's like, what am I trying to solve? Like, I could start a business that's, and I've thought about this, to be honest, doing a Shopify app, right? Mm-hmm. So it's software, a small software business. And what I really should be thinking about is, if I want to make $1 billion, I need to figure out how to serve 1 billion people. And so then I think that's, so we hired these 3 coaches. We meet with them monthly, and we're going to have a face-to-face meeting with them a couple times. And, my goal is to, get that coaching and help me think, number one, am I running on the right highway? Am I running on the right track? This is something that's, I always think of like, it's kind of like, well, is my business model right? Or, is the relationship going well? But if you take it up even a higher step, it's like, am I running on the right highway? Because I'm, working so hard on all these things that are going on. So I think, I'm trying to get this, take all of the things that I've learned and find my moonshot. What's the thing that's going to drive me, but not just in a social cause way, but also, monetary rewards at the end. But if you think my only goal is money, I do believe, and I'm learning like from the experience of others, that can be a hollow path and not successful, right? It's customer orientation and doing something just huge, bigger than I've ever thought. And so that's my goal, and I'm trying to find people to help me navigate that.
That's beautiful. It really is interesting when we start to look at the human condition, right? And we've had so many different mentors, from Peter Diamandis to Paul Tudor Jones to Ray Dalio and Tony Robbins, and we can go on and on and on and on. And there's all these different great mindsets. And what I started to notice, and thank you for sharing that vision, by the way, it's beautiful. I agree with you. I've actually been going down, and as John said, these questions are not scripted. These are just, they're coming from the ether with a really dear friend, and we're having a conversation and sharing it with you all tonight. I've been asking myself the same question. Am I even in the right game? Like, all this time, all this effort, all these experiences have culminated to this. And have I been playing in the wrong sandbox? Kind of profound. Not to say dissuade or to negate or marginalize everything that I've experienced to this point, because my life wouldn't be what it is without the commitments and the connection and the experiences to date. On the flip side of that, is this what's going to serve best moving forward, to your point? And I agree with you that those that are just in the pursuit of monetary gain or influence oftentimes end up falling prey to their own ego, or to, I'll say, becoming a steward of trying to maintain that level of capital or influence. And now it is a hollow victory. In fact, one might even say that it's diamond handcuffs, that they are kind of tied and tethered to something that they weren't necessarily prepared for. You know, I've heard folks go, "Oh, you know, if I made $1 trillion, no problem, I can handle that." And I go, "Really? Has what's your experience been with the billions that you've made so far?" And they go, "Well, I'm not there yet." And it's like, okay.
Yeah,
And
it's not to say money isn't bad, because I'll give you an example. My oldest daughter went to UCSD for undergrad and then got admitted to Oxford. All right. And in order for her to attend as an international student, we had to show, and actually had to have an accountant or attorney write a letter that says she has enough money to pay tuition and live, so she doesn't like become a ward of the state in the UK or whatever. And so if I didn't have some resources, you know, she probably wouldn't have been able to go and have that amazing opportunity at, you know, one of the world's best universities. So I don't in any way say that I don't think it's a great thing. I mean, you know, but I just didn't want to come across that way. But you know, as I've been learning, you know, the right mindset from people that that are being successful today in 2023,
sure.
a lot of them, you know, have a well thought out plan, right? It's like plan before you act, have a plan. And that doesn't always, you know, your moonshot doesn't always come to you. I'm actually still fine tuning mine, but anyway, I didn't want the audience to think that I was.
Well, no, no, not at all. And if I came across that way, that was not my intention. I would say I look at money as an amazing vehicle. It creates amazing capacity. It's never the money, it's what it allows us through our filters to be able to participate and share. And that's where I go. When you look at the amassed wealth of a handful of individuals, I mean, that are multi billionaires, and you go, wow, they single-handedly could potentially end world hunger. You know, and you're like going, huh, that's a really interesting concept. And so what would it take? And it's like, okay. And at the end of the day, that's not ultimately their responsibility to shoulder. In their way, they are helping educate and move the world and influence and creating all these different opportunities as well. As business owners, entrepreneurs hire other people, they create environments that allow the propagation and opportunities. And no one is being held back from those opportunities. To your point, I love the fact that every conversation I've really had with you has resulted in a possibilities opportunity. You know, it's not like, oh, well, if you shut this down and you cut this off and you trim this, it's like, well, what if I ask myself, what would need to happen in order for me to be able to have that experience, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so it's never just the outcome. And that's why, to your point, for me, it was more a matter of if $1 billion is the outcome, and I start going, okay, cool. Why? Because I can. It's like climbing Everest. And I go, okay, nothing wrong with that.
yeah,
I have found that there are people on the other side of that I go, what do you need $1 billion for? You know, they start to critique it. And I go, all right, then what if it was to be able to give it away? And they go, wait, what? Oh, you were thinking I was going to keep all billion. Oh, my bad. So part of this is, to your point, was levels of communication, realization. And as we start to look at this, it's really kind of this concept of body, mind, and spirit. And I'd love to ask you, John, what are some of the things that you hold near spiritually? Because I've known you to be a very spiritual person. I don't know your religious background, and it's not even important. What feeds your spirit?
well, so you know, I was my mom was Catholic. She's raised on the Native American reservation in South Dakota. My dad was Methodist growing up, and they both joined the Mormon church. So I was raised Mormon until, I don't know, 26 or so.
Okay.
You know, was even a Mormon missionary in Korea back in the day. And then, you know, over time, I would say a period of a decade, you know, I basically became an atheist, and that's a long way to go. And I understand that. And that's a whole show.
The pendulum swung way the other direction.
But and I never intended to end up there. But I think um, the giving of yourself does have some rewards, right? And serving others, you feel it, and so um, we've chosen different things. So when we lived in China, for instance, we built something like 8 libraries, my wife and I, along with a few others, for kids that were unregistered from, like, the nomad land in mainland China, that had kind of snuck into the big cities, the parents had, looking for jobs. And so they had to go to unregistered, as unregistered students to school. And so they did, so we facilitated the donation of books, and we built libraries, and, that was a way of giving back. We also donated a Mercedes van that had cardio equipment in there. And then the doctor would drive around different parts of China and the smaller towns and look for children with a certain type of heart problem that's like 99% success rate on the surgery. And if they found those kids, we would pay for the surgery. And, so we've done really big, charitable things, and I can keep going on. So charity's been, I haven't done enough. Obviously I want to do more. But even now, my wife and I are engaged with some teen moms in Rwanda, as you know. So I think,
Yeah,
beautiful. Happiness is really giving of yourself, and in whatever way you can. If it's just pulling weeds, or helping out an elderly person or something like that. I mean, truly, it's. I think that is nourishment, and then I think kind of understanding the world we live in. There's a lot of things that I never grew up with, whether it's types of spirituality, frequency, and all of these. I guess we're more open to the matrix around us, and so I try to be open and learn from what others journeys. So
sure. No, that's beautiful. It's interesting, having grown up with a blended ideological background. My dad's Roman Catholic, my mother's Japanese, so Buddhist by background. And it was interesting having these blendings of ecologies around the science, and still steeped in a lot of tradition. And it was ironic. I actually believe that for me, having kind of the Buddhist background with my mom, kind of resonated with how the frequencies of Catholicism and just Christianity. And it's like, okay, this is interesting. And then I started questioning stuff, because when you're a little kid, you start reading the Bible and you're like going, some of this doesn't make any sense. and I started questioning it. And to your point, we started having some clarity and understanding. And then all of a sudden, through gymnastics, martial arts, different types of, I'll say, exercises and enterprise and body engagement and energetic, I'll say facilitation, sound bowl healings, and then the science of stuff, waveform, acuscope, myoform, and all these different things I learned through my teenage years from a very gifted man named Gary Tuthill. It was interesting to see. I was like going, wow, I started questioning everything. It's like, okay, I know that there's certain dogma. And of course, in the Mormon religion, I mean, again, so steeped in tradition, I started realizing that life itself is the mystery. And the opportunity is to just be present for it. Because if you sit there long enough, you will see change happen right in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, in 24 hours, you can see a sunrise and a sunset. You can have it rain, snow, hail. You can have a plethora of engagements. And it requires one thing from the human condition, and that's presence.
Yeah.
For your kids.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I mentioned that, again, this is not something that I guess I grew up. And, actually, when I was going through my divorce or my first marriage counseling, that's when I learned the concept of being present. And, so, some great person along the way taught me that. And so I definitely try to, I guess, I don't know if a lighthouse is a good analogy, but, it's like when I point my light that way, I try to be present. I will say one thing, since you brought up relationships, you have to communicate ahead of time. Hey, I'm coming home early to give you extra time today. And if you don't communicate that and it's okay with their schedule, then it doesn't work. So I learned that as well.
Thank you. The answer is yes. And that's not a sometimes, that's an always. Yes, thank you. It's beautiful. It brought to mind something, and that was in that presence. I started learning a long time ago because I grew up a very fearful kid. It is strange because I have very doting and loving parents. My fear was more so about social judgment.
Mm.
Extremely Asian when I was young, and it was a very different time in the 1960s and 70s. Not necessarily the most easy time if you were of ethnicity, and it depends on where you lived as well in the country.
Yeah. Where did you live?
So when we came over from Japan, we lived in Great Lakes, Illinois for a very short period of time. And then my father received his orders to go to Vietnam.
Okay.
And he's from Maine, which beautiful part of the country. I, at the time, would not have considered it to be culturally diverse. But being named Charles Francis Hogan II after my Irish grandfather, the name did not match the picture at the time. And kids they can be very opinionated when they haven't had a lot of exposure to different culture. And at the time, David Carradine's Kung Fu was starting to come out. And so it was one of those strange things where like going, oh, and they pick up a pebble and put it in their hand and say, can you grab the pebble, grasshopper? And I was like, well, first of all, I'm not a grasshopper. Second of all, I'm not Chinese. Third of all, neither is David Carradine.
Yeah.
And they're like going, okay, so this resulted in me taking a daily whooping quite often. And it's not that I couldn't protect myself, but to the point, I started finding that if I dimmed my light, is I didn't want to show intellect, didn't want to be smarter than someone, didn't want to outrun someone. So if I just laid low, they'd leave me alone. And fast forward to now, I heard this beautiful analogy, and I love this. So many people are walking around in life with a flashlight, and then they'll go ahead and shine it. They'll come into a completely dark warehouse, and they're like, "Okay, what are you looking for?" He goes, "Oh, I'm looking for this rocking chair." He goes, "Great. There's 250,000 square feet here. It's stacked, 36 pallets tall. Here's a flashlight. Go for it." Well, you may or may not, over a period of time, get lucky and actually find what you're looking for. And then I was reminded about the guy who walks in with a laser light. And he's just like, okay, his scope is so small that the likelihood that he's going to find anything is just so targeted, because he's looking for specific, he's looking for perfection, he's looking for this, one stickly, just rocking chair, and he's got to have it. And then I was reminded about how beautiful it is to be naive sometimes. And that person will probably walk over and just turn on the light switch. And the entire space is illuminated. And they're like, wow, this place is big. You're like going, oh, there's the chair. You're like going, wait, it's right there. You're like going, wait, are you freaking kidding me? I've been here for 4 days with a flashlight. The other guy was going, I've been here for 2 weeks with a laser light. And this guy's like going, I've been here for 5 minutes and it's right there. What's the analogy of the story? Sometimes we just need to flip the light switch on and illuminate ourselves and avail ourselves to be present to everything that surrounds us, because we're swimming in a sea of energy.
Yeah.
And opportunity and life and love and happiness and prosperity. And as long as we remove the judgment, or we create such a myopic view that it's so small because it has to be our way. Whose way? Our way, my way, the only way, the right way. And I was like, so I love the fact that you've stepped outside of self, because John, in your own right, you're an amazing CEO, entrepreneur, and C-suite executive that's run very, 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 very large organizations, as has Terry. You're both brilliant. And to be able to live in humility and go, I don't have all the answers. And I'm looking for scope. In fact, I would dare say, not better, we're looking for different. And I go, I love that. And someone was asking me the other day, they go, yeah, what do you about the different? And I go, well, here's the point. Different doesn't judge where I've already been. It doesn't make it wrong. It doesn't make it right. It just is. That's the experience, and I can take all the lessons from it. When I'm looking for something better, I actually unintentionally marginalize, because I'm like going, well, it was all right, but it didn't get me the billions that I was looking for. It might have gotten you millions. It's like, okay.
Yeah, when I left Intel the very first time, I left after 7 years and went back like 3 years later and worked another 15 years or whatever. Not actually not that long, I guess, 13 years. But what I realized is the day after I left that company, I had lost touch with all of the connections around me.
Wow.
And I don't know if it was just, 200 emails a day, constant meetings, whatever. So, the Dave Aspreys of the world will recommend, some kind of separation from your phone. Don't keep it right by your bed, whatever. And maybe when you wake up, hit the yoga or, do whatever you're going to do, meditation, run around the block, whatever. And I think those little blocks of time help you separate and will help you be more present. I want to tell you this thing that I just learned last Friday. It's the guy who runs Mind Valley. I don't know if you've heard of Vision before, but a really interesting guy. And he gave this tip. So I'm giving him full credit, and he might have got it from someone else, but it's like, sit down and think about, what do you want your day to be? And by like really specific. Okay. So what time do you want to wake up? What do you want to eat for breakfast? And then, do you want to work out first? What do you, spend time with family, or do you want to like wake up and you're on email, you're doing your big projects, your smart tasks. A lot of people, get tired at 3 or 4 in the afternoon. So their decision making and their big projects are, better in the morning. Not everyone, but anyway, it's like, okay. And at lunch, do you want to be doing your networking? Like, is that where you're networking in? Do you want to have lunch in in an outdoor people spotting place, or do you want to be quiet, at your desk or whatever? And then, what kind of friends do you want to be with during the day? What family members, and literally lay out the details of your day. And I'm doing that right now. And so I'm in the process of this, but, I think you're going to be surprised. So it's a little different. I'm like, hey, I want my business to double in 3 years. Like that's a kind of a tactical, it is a nice target and goal. But if you think about your day, this is something I'm learning, and it's live. It's happening right now. I think you'll find some surprises, and then it's like, okay, now this is my ideal day. Walking my dog, laying on the beach, whatever it is, and then I think that helps you think about where you want to be, where you want to go, and also you'll feel more present because you're thinking about this in a little bit different way.
There's some really cool analytics and logic around that. And I would add the one thing that can actually enhance and compound the fulfillment factor is linking the emotions that you need to feel most often. In every aspect of what you just described, the unconscious motivator behind it is how it'll make you feel. And if it's productive, if it's contributory, if it's validated, if it's successful, if it's connected. And I started noticing that for a lot of folks, that all mindset is based on heart set, all of it, 100% of it. And they go, oh, no, I make things based on analytics and judgment. I said, okay, great. How will that make you feel if you accomplish any of the things that he's like going, pretty darn good. I was like, darn good? He goes, freaking ecstatic. And I go, wow, I can see that as being a great motivator for hitting all of these metrics. And they're like, holy smokes. because I've heard this, and we know many people who espouse to that platform. And what I loved about it was, for those that are processors, it gives them some really sound framework for hanging specificity. And I love specificity. I love, it's like complete outcomes. And I go, and then I will say, what are the intangibles that kind of get sucked up in the wake of this thing as well? And they go, what? I go, because everything you're talking about has gravity to it. Everything has this like texture and weight and flavor and scent. And they go, man, you like taking this thing to a whole nother level. I said, well, because all five senses are involved. Because when you're completely present, you'll start to find, and it's like, man, there's nothing that can hold me back. Because I've known people who've hit their goals and been miserable the entire time.
I love that distinction. Thank you. Yeah, that was wonderful.
No, it's a pleasure. It's one of those things, is when we can, I know you well, my brother, and that's why I was like, oh, I like this. And I saw you pop, it's like, oh, this is like my new toy. It's like, okay, great. And so it's like the Hot Wheels, but we're going to throw the turbocharged motor in the sucker. It's like, it's beautiful when we can increase the capacity. And I go, ooh, so wait, you mean I can have a twofer? Like, I can get real specific and track and have KPIs of looking at all these key, production indicators at where I'm going. And it's like, and you can feel really good while it's going on too. It's like, okay, I'm in. Where do I sign up?
Yeah, I love it, because even as you said that, I mean, I just have a natural bias toward the productivity emotion, and then I have to think, well, really, is that the right thing or not?
And this goes back to our earlier part of our conversation, is like, am I in the right game? Am I in the right channel? And I was like, because I may love swimming. You're like going, okay, oh, is that a megalodon? It's like going, we might want to take a right at this channel instead of that channel. The other side to this too, John, is, and you said something earlier that really resonated with me, and that was, in your presence, how that lessons of what you didn't grow up with actually culminated and cultivated into having even more presence with your kids. And that's so beautiful, leading by example. I'm a huge, almost wickedly addicted to the ideology of mentorship by comparison to just even coaching. And maybe it's due to the fact that it relies on two things, which is skill, which can be acquired and learned, and then the exercising of that skill, which actually becomes experience. And I go, oh, I love when people share experiences. I love it. And it adds so much more context and depth. And it just dawned on me in this conversation, and maybe the reason why is because there's that emotional connection to it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's for one big difference, I think, in small businesses, so at Intel, I ran a $6 billion business, so it was quite large, right? And it was super stressful. But we had mentors and we had sponsors, right? And your sponsor is somebody that's, reaching their hand down once in a while and pulling you up, right? But you never tell them, hey, I'm thinking about leaving the company, right? Because then all of a sudden they're gone, right? Because their goal is to facilitate the business of the company. And the mentors are somebody that's like, hey, I get this challenge, my boss, or this work challenge, and you're getting that coaching. And in a small business, a lot of times you're not getting that from. I mean, you're the boss, right? And you can't, at least when you're starting a business, you can't afford, the MIT students, right, and their brain power, or the you can't have a small company full of A+ players, right? Because you can't afford it, right? You got to reinvest money in the business. So I think it's important in whatever way you do that to have that mentorship, out in the world, and whatever that is for you. And just even here talking about it, I realize, I seek that out, but maybe I don't even have enough of it. I can always learn from others, and there's probably missed opportunities along the way for me too.
And I would say part of it too, though, goes back to that energetic center, that scientific ideology about frequency and how we're connecting with people and who we're actually manifesting into our lives. I was reminded today by Svetlana Newsom, who was a guest on another one of our communities. It's Your Best Life, but she was on a speaker spotlight, and she was talking about manifestation, and that when you can visualize it, no different than the exercise you're doing it today, so clearly, so specifically, and we start to add in all of the vision. So dreaming comes from exterior to us. Vision comes from within us, that we can envision it. We can actually manifest it. We can propagate it. We can support it. That becomes so endearing. And then there's another part where I go, and this is going to sound a little woo-woo, so I apologize ahead of time. So I believe that we fake it till we make it. We face it till we make it. We faith it as we make it. And then we get to this point where we believe as we achieve.
Yeah.
And people go, well, what is that? And I said, that's the culmination of unconscious competence where skill aligns with experience. But yet we're not done cooking, as Keith would say. So we start to align with other like-minded, like-hearted people, where now I can remove judgment because I know that they're only looking out and desire what's best for me, my family, our loved ones. And this is where I see the legacy of what we get to leave our kids as well, because now they're learning how relationships are cultivated and best practices as to the top 5 people they're spending the most time with.
Mm-hmm.
Who is that really? Not out of just convenience.
Yeah, it's funny how Aaron Rodgers has brought this, idea to the forefront, right? He tore his Achilles. No quarterback has ever come back within the same year for that. And, he's trying to will his body into that reality. So it's kind of been interesting. I don't know if you've noticed that impact on at least the sports society.
It's that the body can achieve what the mind can conceive, and your father's done a lot of work in this arena too, as far as looking at the frequencies, the amount of electricity that's required within the body to go ahead and heal thyself. And it's beautiful to see that technology is now catching up with this whimsical ideology that we are more than the sum of just some of the parts that we recognize. We're actually the culmination of all the parts of us, and that there are things working in the background that are working some crazy magic mojo that can really help us move forward.
Yeah.
So I love this conversation, man.
Yeah, but whatever they say, when you have an idea, I mean, by the way, every bad business decision I've ever made, was at one time a great idea, right?
Right.
And so, you're balancing, hey, there's this idea, whether to start a new business or a new relationship or, end a current business or relationship or whatever. It's this, versus, how can I imagine and be present and make this thing happen? And certainly whether it's, in healing, there's evidence that if you believe what you're taking or the treatment, the protocol is going to help you. I mean, there's clear evidence that it does help. I mean, you help yourself, right? So it's an interesting thing. And as far as kids go, it's just, you try to put them on the right path. And, we mentioned religion earlier. I want my kids to be able to articulate why they believe a certain way. And then I'm supportive of that choice. And I can see your time's winding down, Chuck. It's been amazing.
Brother, I'm so grateful for you. And
I hope something was helpful for somebody.
Without question. Again, thank you for your insights, and thank you for being so selfless and sharing your insights and distinctions. I admire you so much, John, and I'm so grateful.
You have my full admiration too. So
I appreciate you, brother. Hey, for all of you, so you heard it from the man. Live your life. Hang your hat out there, and just make sure that you are living your life to your best life, and giving yourself every opportunity to go ahead and expand and move forward. So I'm going to remind you all that this show can also be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network. Please check us out for all the news and all the programming. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Chuck. Bye-bye.